Someone was banging on the door, taking away the last thoughts of sleep. He jumped out of bed and froze in place. Everything was unfamiliar to him. The bulky, dusty furniture, the ridiculous chandelier with the plastic danglers. But he had no time to think about it. The door gradually gave way under the heavy strikes. He glanced wildly around the room. There! He rushed to the table, seized the knife lying there, and took a step toward the door, but tripped over the edge of the carpet and fell down, miraculously not cutting himself. At that moment, the door collapsed, and he looked up. He woke up. For several minutes, he was afraid to open his eyes, but the room was quiet, apart from the clock ticking, and he made up his mind. He lay in his bed in his room. From the window fell the faint light of the breaking dawn. He glanced at the clock on the table beside his bed. It was 10 to 5. He still had time to nap before morning. Then the door creaked open, and he heard an indistinct rustling sound. Strange, he thought. I locked the door as far as I remember. The rustling at the door didn't stop. Oh, it's just a cat, he decided, and turned to the other side. Wait! What cat? I don't have any cats. The thought hit him like a slap with a wet towel. He wanted to jump up, but his legs refused to obey. He propped himself up on his elbows, stiff with terror, trying to see what was moving in the darkness of the corridor. The shapeless shadow, which seemed enormous, drew nearer and nearer. His eyes widened, and he froze in anticipation. He woke up. Bright light hid his eyes. Squinting, he looked around. He was lying in an unfamiliar room on a vast, wide bed. Closely to his left stood a wall-length bookcase jam-packed with books. He tried to read the names of the books on the spines, but understood nothing. The language was unknown to him. To the right, there was a window. He could see a landscape entirely alien to his memory outside the window. Mountains, dark, coniferous forest. Judging by the sun shining directly through the window, the day was in full swing. I wonder, he thought, where am I? He got up and wanted to leave the room, but suddenly found no hint of a door. He stared in amazement at the bare wall before him, then turned to the bookcase. Maybe there's a secret exit. He stared blankly at the bookshelves for a moment, not knowing where to begin his search. Then, suddenly, a strange sound came from behind him. A bird hit the window pane, he thought, and a shadow fell over him. Someone or something had obscured the window. The sound repeated and began to grow louder. Cold with terror, he began to turn slowly, very slowly, toward the window. He was almost there. Now he would see the sound of shattering glass, shards falling to the floor, and something rushing into the room. He woke up. He was lying in his room. His head was hanging off the bed, his neck aching unbearably from uncomfortable position. A bed, a low table, a mirror, a door with a key protruding from the keyhole. Everything was as it should be. He took a pack of cigarettes from the table and lit one up. To hell with it, he thought. He shouldn't have agreed to take part in that damned experiment. Of course, he really needed the money and the amount he'd been paid, but hell, he didn't know what it would cost him. He hadn't slept properly in 2 weeks since the experiment. This constant stalking, these nightmares within the dreams. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Then came the landlady's voice, asking if he would let her in. She had brought the mail. Of course, he replied, and got up to open the door. However, before he could even take a step, he froze, feeling the coldness of terror gripping his heart. Cracking and twisting, the door was pulled at with some immense force. His landlady's voice asked if he was awake, and then the door flew off its hinges with a rumble. He woke up. He was in his room again. The door was being banged on, the old wood humming under the heavy blows. He jumped up in a panic. Damn it! How could he have forgotten? He hurriedly threw some books off the top shelf and grabbed the gun hidden behind them. Then he turned to the door and waited, licking his dry lips. When the door collapsed, he fired. Stunned, he didn't hear any return shots. The ambulance's blinker flickered blue and red like a disco light. 2 orderlies in white coats pushed a stretcher with a body wrapped in a black bag into the ambulance. Standing a little further away were 2 policemen, a young constable and a detective in civilian clothes. You see, the neighbours called the station and said he had locked himself in his room and hadn't come out for days. We called and knocked several times, but nobody answered, so we decided to enter. We thought maybe something had happened to him. A shot rang out when the door fell down. My partner got hit. I saw the guy. He looked totally off the rails. He pulled a gun on me. You know, in the academy, they teach you to shoot to kill. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was already cold. Sir, I have no idea why he started to shoot at us. Guess he was on some really wicked stuff. The detective was silent, looking thoughtfully at the orderlies, still fumbling with the body on a stretcher. He woke up. Someone was banging on the door.